Okay, there's more people here than I expected to be here. Sorry.
So, the smartest thing for I don't even know why they're showing this. Like, it has got nothing to do with it.
They all feed into the Brazos. They all feed into the Brazos.
I understand that, but I'm not concerned with below the Brazos. I'm concerned with, or below Whitney. I'm concerned with Whitney and above. If you want to keep the pool at Whitney, you lower this one by half of whatever you want out of this one. You lower this one by half of whatever you have of this one. And everybody takes a hit.
August 20th. Okay, so Brazos River Authority water supply reservoirs. This is a reallocation. This is basically how they're planning to manage the water in Lake Whitney. And they're going to make some changes. And we're going to hear a whole presentation tonight about these changes. Let me go get these two again. So if you can, share this video with folks in the Bosque and Hill County area who are interested in following how the water in the lake is used. This will change how much water is available for other emergencies. These are here to just show you water flowing into the Brazos. And then the colors along this. Talk about the different levels in the lake.
We've had a great all the rain, but it doesn't say, hey, we've had a great turnout to recycle your water. You know it?
Okay, I'm gonna go set up. I didn't sign in.
Voluntary.
Voluntary sign-in sheet. All it is you were here, we were here, we had a chance to talk about the project. I have some more on the way.
Can I have an extension for a minute? Real quick. Everybody can hear me? If you're driving a silver Chevy Malibu parked in front of the doors at the football stadium, please move that immediately, otherwise the city will have it removed. They're having a football game there tonight, and people can't get in and out. So the silver Chevy Malibu in front of the entrance to the football stadium, please move that for us. Thank you.
Stretch out this tripod. Oh, no, go right ahead. I can move.
Everyone will start the presentation in about 5 minutes. We'll give folks a little bit more time to trickle in. We'll get started with about 5:35.
5 more minutes. Okay, while we got 5 minutes, I'm going to show you guys this. So, let's see if I can get this pointed down a little bit more. Oh, I don't think I can. Oh, yes, I can, right here. Okay, so this is my laptop. This is a document. It's 140 pages long. I'm going to kind of scroll through it so you can see just how much information is here. Let's go a little bit bigger. Yeah. Okay, so lots of numbers, lots of maps, pretty good explanation here, and then this summary. And actually, let me see if this is loaded real quick. I'm trying to get signed into my page so I can post this on the stream. I mean, no internet. I have internet. Connect. Connected. Okay. This is first world problems, man. Okay, so if anybody asks, this is on my Amy Teal page. Here we are. I'm going to drop Oh, I'm still signed in as council member, okay. Okay, so that should put this document on the screen for you guys somewhere. And I was streaming some of the big maps that they had displayed out there. But if you go through this document, there are some maps. This is a lot of information. Charts. It's these different levels that they're going to be talking about, which basically just determines how much of the water in the lake can be used at which times. Storage capacities. Water planning groups. Population, how many people are impacted by this water. Major reservoirs. Water demands. Alternative, different plans, the impact of the different plans.
Hello. Sorry, that was really, I apologize. So
yeah, there's a lot.
To this public meeting for the Whitney Lake Reallocation Study.
Let me get back up
Appreciate you guys
here.
taking the time out of your day to come here. Although this is nice to be the AC versus outside. It's a little warm out there. So I'm Hannah Hadley. I work for the Army Corps of Engineers. This is Tim Helms. He also works for Army Corps of Engineers. And this is Peyton Lisby, who works for Brazos River Authority.
Right.
And we're going to be
Brazos River
splitting up
Authority.
the presentation and giving the presentation today. So this public meeting is your opportunity to learn more about the Whitney Lake Reallocation Study and provide us your comments. We will be speaking to this presentation. There are some copies here. We are also going to post the presentation on our project website. And then folks are more than welcome to walk around and look at the different posters that we have up. And there's both Corps and Brazos River Authority or BRA staff around here that can help answer questions. So for different ways to submit comments, we have written comment forms here that you're more than welcome to fill out today, or take them with you and mail them back in. The address is on the back. We also have you'll also be able to record verbal comments over in this corner. Alex, waving, can take those, we'll record them, and then transcribe them, and then they would be part of the record.
Wow.
The other way would be to email us, which my very last slide has that email address. Or if you want to handwrite your own comment in and send it in, the address will be up there as well. And I just also wanted to give a big thank you to Hill County and Hill County Extension Office for providing the space today. So thank you very much. Next slide. So how did we get here? So back in 2023, BRA partnered with the Corps to start this feasibility study, exploring the possibility of providing an additional water storage to BRA. We are following the standard Corps planning process for feasibility studies, and we're about a little more than halfway through. Right now, as you can see in this star, we're conducting our public review of the draft report and seeking your feedback on our proposal. Next slide. And so we just wanted to kind of do a bottom line up front. This study is not proposing to change the top of the current conservation pool, which is shown here. It's the 533, which is the typical lake elevation at Lake Whitney, or Whitney Lake. When Whitney Lake was built, Congress authorized it to be a multi-purpose dam for flood risk management, water supply, hydropower, and recreation. So what is the purpose of the study? So the Corps, or you say, says in this slide, is studying the feasibility of reallocating some of the storage capacity or the proportion of storage in Whitney Lake for the purpose of water supply. So the reallocation is needed to provide water for municipal and industrial users, so M&I, in response to population and industrial growth. Next slide. What is a reallocation? Reallocation is a change in some amount of storage or a proportion of storage in an existing reservoir, like Whitney Lake, from its present use. So in this case, maybe from hydropower, shifting it over to M&I water supply, as authorized, as you can see here in the Water Supply Act of 1958. And now I'll turn it over to Peyton to talk through several slides.
Thank you. Thank y'all for being here this afternoon. My name is Peyton Lisenby. I'm a senior water resource planner with the Brazos River Authority. BRA is what's called a quasi-state agency. We operate under the authority of the governor, and we were created by the Texas legislature back in 1929. We have contributed to this study as the non-federal sponsor, so we've kicked in about half the cost of what it takes to do this feasibility study. And moreover, we've been advocating for this study for over 10 years because we know the value of this water and we know the opportunity that we have to take advantage of this valuable water in meeting the growing needs of the Brazos Basin in terms of water demand. In Texas, surface water belongs to the state. It is held in trust by the state for the benefit of the people. The Brazos River Authority has a legislative duty, as it were, to develop, to manage, and protect the surface water resources within the Brazos Basin. To that end, what we do is, it's not our water, but we gain the right to make that water useful, to make that water available for beneficial uses for the public. And in doing so, we can provide that water to municipalities, industry, at a wholesale cost, and we can then take the revenue from that wholesale cost and pump it back into all of the activities we have to undergo for the maintenance, planning, resources that it takes to maintain, protect, and manage that water supply, okay? So everything that we work for, making water available, the revenue that we collect, and making water available on a wholesale basis, is put back into the process of continuing to make sure that we have enough water available as we go forward into the future. The activities that we take in fulfilling our mission are overseen and governed by a board of directors. So we have a 21-member board. They're appointed by the governor. They do not get paid to be on our board. They do get their travel costs reimbursed, but that's about it. And specifically here today, the reason BRA is so closely attached to this, we have a water supply storage contract with the Corps of Engineers for water supply storage in Whitney Lake, but not just in Whitney Lake. We have water supply storage contracted with the Corps of Engineers in 8 total, including Whitney, 4 reservoirs. And that's all part of our Brazos Basin water supply system. So the Brazos Basin is about the size of Tennessee. We operate an 11 reservoir system of reservoirs for water supply. The yellow dots here show Corps of Engineer reservoirs that BRA has a water supply storage contract in. The red dots show reservoirs that are owned and operated by the BRA. This supply system is integral to meeting the array of demands, the array of water needs that occur within the Brazos Basin. And we are constantly looking for opportunities to better manage, better enhance, better develop our water supply to help meet sharply growing demands in the basin. And for reference, here we are at Lake Whitney. That's that yellow dot right there. Quite conveniently placed on the main stem of the Brazos River, pretty high up in the basin. And as a general rule of thumb, if you're a water supplier, it's in your interest to keep your supplies as full as possible, as high as possible in the basin for as long as possible throughout a year. Because the higher up in the basin you can keep a water supply, the more useful potential it has to meet demands downstream, right? And so that's one of the reasons why Whitney is so special, because of its location. And I mentioned demands before. I want to just familiarize you a little bit with some data that's from our current regional water planning process. We're in the 6th cycle of regional water planning. This data represented on this map is from the Texas Water Development Board. And what it is showing is water needs across this swath of counties from about where our PK Possum-Kingdom Reservoir is all the way down to the coast. Projected out to the year 2080, that's about the 50-year planning horizon, which is a pretty good benchmark for water planning. And when I say the word need, I mean something very specific. Water need, for planning purposes, is water demands that exceed the current supplies. So water needs are volumes of water that you need to come up with a supply strategy to meet, because current supplies don't quite get it. Okay? These are the needs projected out to 2080 for this portion of the Brazos Basin. You can see here needs are highly varied. In some places, just a few thousand acre feet, and for reference, an acre foot is about a football field 1 foot deep in water. All right? That's an acre foot. Needs range from just a few thousand, tens of thousands, to even hundreds of thousands of acre feet, right? The darkest red colors on this map. So they're no joke. These needs are very large, and they need to be planned for. This data, this graph, is using the same Texas Water Development Board regional water planning data just to show you the aggregate of those needs. If you looked at all the counties in this graph and added up all their needs for each decade from 2030 to 2080. And the reason I show you this is to show you that the needs are now. All right, the needs just don't exist after 2080. The needs are now. And the planning has already begun, right? The planning to meet these needs has already begun and will continue to progress as we look for opportunities to help meet these demands. The BRA, our mission, right, again, is our duty to develop water resources in the basin. So this is not something that we can sit idly by. There is no resting on our laurels. We have to look at our supply system and constantly look for ways to make it better, make it work better, optimize it, so that we play our role, our part, in help meeting these needs. And I think I hand it off now to Tim.
All right, my name is Tim Helms. I am a water manager with the Corps of Engineers, and I've only got a few slides for you guys today, but kind of want to go over the basics of what we're showing you guys and kind of make sure you're oriented for a lot of the analysis slides coming later in the presentation. So right now I'm showing what we're calling our bathtub slide. Kind of shows how the current pool is allocated out between the different levels and different entities. And so here's what typically we recognize as full or our top of conservation 533. And so we typically like to keep this level full all year round as best as possible. Above this pool, you can see we do have storage. We have about a little over 1 million acre-feet of storage above what we like to consider full, and this is for flood storage. So if we see flooding downstream, we can hold water in that pool, and many of you guys have experienced high pools there in Whitney before. So if we look down below 533, we have this 13-foot space that's split in two. So we have federal hydropower that has about 77 or 78% of that pool, and that's for using the hydropower units for generating electricity to the grid. And then our water supply partners who are here with us tonight, they have about 22% of that 13 feet below the conservation pool. And below that, we have what we call the power head reserve, or an active pool, and that is to hold some storage so those generators operate properly. And so the generators have been designed to run the water here in this pool, and this provides enough energy head to produce energy for the grid. So here we have our period of record plot, and so just to kind of orient ourselves, we have time. So starting in the early 50s here, all the way to now, 2025, and then we have elevation here on the y-axis. And so you can see here in the 50s, the lake filled up and stayed around 520 for about 10 years or so. Looks like there was a raise in the pool in the 70s, and so we've been at 533 since then, and that's kind of our guiding line since the 70s. The red line is the spillway crest. So those are those big, huge gates you guys see. If you go downstream, they're sitting on the spillway, and that's the elevation of that spillway. That is our top of flood pool, that purple line. And then here I have some black bars to kind of represent the kind of change in operations that we've seen over the years. So I have the early years with the lowered top of conservation pool. This is what we're kind of seeing here is this 1970s through 2015 kind of where the pool was drawn down a few feet, and we had a few years of flood. The pool was drawn down a few feet, and a few years of flood. But you can kind of see here since 2015, we've had a little bit of a change in operation. Peyton will kind of go into some of the reasons why, but I point that out to show that the pool hasn't quite gotten as low as it's historically gotten in the last 10 years or so. And then we have another basin system, Brazos system diagram here. It's kind of more for my liking. I like a little simpler drawing so I can understand it, but it's kind of showing the same thing. So here we have on the main stem Brazos, we have the Possum Kingdom and the Granbury and the Whitney. And then we have, all the other lakes, how they all combine together into one system to help for flood protection as well as water supply, and they all work together as a system to meet the needs of the people in this area. And then my last slide is our reservoir modeling. So for this study, they've asked me to build a model of the basin. So I built all 12 reservoirs into a computer model. It has historical data all the way back to 1938, and then we can set operations in those models and change those operations really easily with just a few button clicks. And so we can test the current model, the current operations with any other operation plans we want. And so I say all this to all the data we're going to see from now on in the presentation comes from this model. So we've done our best to build it out with a lot of detail and a lot of data to kind of provide provide the best data we could in showing the differences between what we're doing now at the lake versus the proposed plan we have in the future. I'll hand it back to.
Okay, so I'm back. So what Peyton talked about is the need in the region, why we're here, the need for the water, and then Tim explained kind of how the lake is managed now, as well as the computer modeling that we did to look at the existing condition through the model, and then the alternatives that we developed. So the Whitney team, which is made up of core staff and BRA staff, it's multidisciplinary, developed 7 alternatives and the required no action alternative. And these alternatives really focused on scaling 3 specific elements. So the proportion of storage, so that in the earlier backup slide it said 77%, 22%. So that's what I mean by the proportion. And then raising the conservation pool higher into the flood pool. And we also looked at lowering the bottom of the conservation pool. So ultimately we came up with 7 alternatives plus the no action, which is what we compare the 7 alternatives to. So the team did analysis on all of those alternatives, and then we looked at these key considerations. So all of these resources, so to speak, were all looked at and are discussed in the study report that is on our website. Ultimately, the team proposed what we call, and I'm going to use the name that's in the report so for consistency, is Alternative 6, combination, conservation pool and powerhead reserve / inactive pool. And that we are proposing that alternative as what we call the tentatively selected plan. And because it maximizes the water supply benefits while having relatively similar effects as the other alternatives. Next slide. So this is the bathtub, with as alternative 6. And so you can see, and I have a nice, Tim is helping me out here. So, but you can see that the top of the conservation pool, we did not raise this. This is the same. What we did is we dropped, so the water between 520 and 533 is split 50-50 between hydropower purposes and water supply purposes. Then we dropped from 520 to 512, and that allocation of water is going to water supply. So ultimately, if you look, so the new bottom of the conservation pool is 512, the top is still 533, and BRA will be 65%, and Southwest Power Administration will be 35%. So, and it's mainly looking at how the water, the storage water, how it's being proportioned out or allocated to the different purposes between hydropower and water supply. So I'm going to turn it back over to Peyton to kind of talk through kind of how this is what this means to the lake based on our modeling that Tim did.
Thank you. So like Hannah mentioned, I mean, this is the reallocation proposal that stems from the reallocation study. And I want to call your attention to that we aren't changing elevations in the reservoir in as much as we are activating storage within the reservoir, right? So like Hannah mentioned, this top 13 feet between 533 and 520, that's been now evenly proportioned between water supply and hydropower. And in addition to that, to maximize the water supply benefit potential of the of the tentatively selected plan, or alternative 6, as it's labeled here, we've also activated this space of storage between 512 and 520 and dedicated that entirely to water supply. So that's how the new total water supply allocation is cobbled together, right? We have a even split between hydropower and water supply upper 13 feet, and then we activated this previously inactive portion of the reservoir and dedicated that to water supply. That maximizes the water supply benefit of the reallocation, while also maintaining minimal impacts or negligible impacts to any of the other authorized uses.
And in the study, you can find
what we're about to go into is
alternative
a little bit
5.
of a dive into
Sorry, I'm
what
so
this means
sorry.
for lake
Alternative
levels.
5,
And it's a
4,
little bit of a
3.
journey, and I'm going to call your attention back to a couple things that Hannah and a couple things that Tim have pointed out already. The data we're going to look at now substantiates one of the bottom line points we made on the second slide of this presentation, that one, we're not changing the top of conservation at 533, that's staying the same. But also, that under tentatively selected plan conditions, under TSP conditions, these conditions, that lake levels will actually be, on average, typically higher than what they were between the early 1970s and 2014. And the reason that time frame is important is because, like Tim mentioned, in 2015, there was a significant change in how hydropower operated at the reservoir, and that had a consequent or coincident impact on lake levels. So I'm going to talk through the logic of how we compare lake levels, what statistical tools we can use to help communicate differences in lake level variability over time, and hopefully this will address a lot of concerns that folks have had regarding the impact of the tentatively selected plan, alternative 6, on the behavior of the lake. So, if you recall from that period of record slide that Tim was talking to, the top of conservation level, elevation at Whitney Lake, has increased 3 times since the lake was impounded back in 1951. Originally, the lake top of conservation, when it was impounded, was 520. That was the top of the conservation level. And then, over time, Corps of Engineers, which we're very grateful for, continued to build flood control reservoirs in the Brazos Basin, and so that allowed Whitney to not need as much flood pool to capture flood waves. And so the conservation pool was kind of gradually raised until about 1972. It was raised to 533 and eventually filled to that level by March 1973. Okay, so that's our first very important date, 1973, the early 70s. That's when the current lake level, the current top of conservation was established. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, all the while, Whitney's been here from its impoundment all the way through about 2015. Hydropower operations at Lake Whitney operated in what's described as a peaking capacity, which means that they generated power to meet demand. They generated power to put it on the grid and meet power demands. What that means, practically, is that there was a lot of generation. Whenever folks came home and it was hot in the summer, and you turned on your AC and the grid loaded up with power demand, Whitney Lake would generate to meet that demand. Okay? That's why Tim pointed out between the 70s and 2015, you saw a lot of lake level variability, right? Because when the lake would fill up, we'd have power demands and then the lake would generate. They'd pass water through the turbines, which necessarily lowers the lake level, right? We're letting water pass through the turbines, generate electricity. And the peaking operations continued until about 2015. And in 2015, around there was a change in the energy market in Texas. A lot of people don't know, but Texas leads the nation in terms of renewable energy. And so the market has changed to accommodate those new energy providers. And it also created a new product for hydropower to meet. So around 2015, hydropower operations changed from peaking capacity being operated to meet demand to what's known as ready reserve. Spinning reserve, there's a few names, but ready reserve is what we call it. And that became the primary product, hydropower product in Whitney around 2015. Ready reserve operations require much less generation than peaking operations. The reason for that is ready reserve, the product you're selling to the energy market, is the potential to supply power, not the power itself, right? So the more you generate, the more you lower the lake level, the more you lower the potential to generate power, right? Because you're drawing the lake level down and reducing producing that hydraulic head that we talked about. Okay? Now, as a consequence of that, a lot less water since 2015, a lot less water has been passing through the turbine to generate. All right, they generate for very limited amounts of times, very discreetly. And what that means is the river downstream of Whitney is a lot less wet now than it was from the 70s through 2015. One thing, in terms of comparing lake levels, we wanted to use that time period between the 70s to 2014 as our comparative mark, all right? Because that's what we think the lake level, that's what's typical, okay? So our first foray into comparing these lake levels is looking at averages. Averages are very helpful just in terms of describing what the lake normally does. Alternative one that Tim mentioned, that's our current conditions model product that Tim did. That describes what the lake is doing now, the operations it's performing now over the period of record. The average lake elevation here for alternative one, current conditions, is 532.2. Compare that to the average over the observed period of record from the 70s through 2014, 528.8. All right, so current conditions, like Tim mentioned, keep the lake level a little higher than what's been typical in the past. The TSP, our tentatively selected plan, those model conditions kind of float right in the middle, 531.3. A little higher than what's been observed, a little lower than the current conditions. And so that's why we said in the beginning, TSP conditions will keep the lake elevations a little higher than what occurred between the 70s and 2014. This is where that comes from. And I want to draw your eye to the right side of the graph. These are our reference elevations here. Top of conservation at 533, the current, right now today, top of the inactive pool at 520, and then what's being proposed by the TSP is the top of the inactive pool at 512. And for reference, from the 70s to 2014, the lowest the lake ever got was 516.7. That was in December of 2011, 2012 timeframe.
How much water was Brazos River taking off of it?
Our storage contract hasn't changed with the Corps since we first got it. We hold a storage contract for 22% of the pool, which works out to about 57,000 acre feet. That's storage. That's not the amount of water we're actually allowed to use. We are able to use what's the reliable supply that's generated from that storage. Now, the averages here are just one way to look at it. The other thing I would like y'all to consider is another way to communicate variability is frequencies, right? Percentages. So this slide here shows what we call an average condition, 50th percentile. In short, half the time, the lake level is going to be higher than what these elevations are listed here. So for alternative one, current conditions, as you expect, half the time, normally the lake's going to be higher than 532.8. Because as we talked about, we try to keep the lake at top of conservation, right? Compare that to the observed, the historical record from the 70s to 2014, half the time the lake is above 521.2. And here again is our tentatively selected plan falling right in the middle. Okay? Those are average conditions. Half the time the lake level will be above those. The last one I want you to consider is what we're using to represent dry conditions, right? Whenever we have significant droughts. These would be 90th percentile conditions, which means most of the time the lake level is going to be above these low levels, right? So think about that for a second. These are lower lake levels. These are lake levels that would occur during drought. So drought isn't the normal condition of the reservoir, so most of the time the water level is going to be above this. And again, current conditions, the 90th percentile, 90% of the time we can expect the lake to be above 528.4. 90% of the time for observed the history of the reservoir, 90% of the time we can expect it to be above 522.9. And here is our TSP model condition, pretty much squarely in the middle.
Are you saying that you're projecting that the lake levels will be that moving forward under this plan?
For the 90th percentile, 90% of the time will be above that.
Did you take the 257,000 acre feet of water out of it? Because that's what we're concerned about. And what the lake levels will be after that.
Yes, so this is a model condition that models
But it
the
doesn't
tentatively
have
selected plan
water
usage with the
moving
reservoir.
water to-
Yes, yeah, it has full usage of the reservoir. But you have to imagine there's water flowing in the reservoir all the time, right? The reservoir goes up, it It's drawn down as the water
Yes,
is
I've
used.
lived on the lake for 25 years, and in province, of course, taking water out, and these lake levels aren't even real. I mean, we've gone down so many times to 5, 2. There you have less observed, like it's happened once or twice. We've gone down to that so many times over the last 25 years. In fact,
Absolutely.
I mean, 3 years, 4 years have been exceptional with the lake level, but we're just naturally drawn down with what projects out now. So we took a 5-foot level.
Before you move on, I want
most of the
to address a key thing here. The Brazos River Authority is the minority water user in the reservoir. Southwestern Power Administration is the hydropower administrator. They're the ones that market the available power from the reservoir. So from the time the reservoir was built all the way through 2014, power was generated at peaking capacity, so a lot of water was being released from the reservoir. Okay? Water supply makes the minority share of releases. Now, the past few years have been odd because the hydropower product has changed, and so they're releasing a little less water. But that doesn't mean we get to release more. We still have our little bit. And so, in the past few years, one of the reasons we're all here is because the hydropower users have been letting less water out of the reservoir, the river downstream is drier. So the folks downstream that have needed water have not been able to rely upon the generation that used to occur at the dam to supply that water downstream. They call us to make our releases from the reservoir to make up the shortfall. The problem is we don't have very much water in the reservoir. Our supply is used up like that. All right? Now hydropower operations are what they are. And it also means there's an opportunity maybe to reallocate a little bit of water from hydropower to water supply so we can kind of find that balance again. Right? Used to, there was a synergy between hydropower releases and water supply, but now that the hydropower releases have gone down, we need to look for an opportunity to balance out water supply availability to make up for that. And I think we just have one more slide. It's probably the most important one, and that is how to leave comments. So I'd just like in closing to say that we can demonstrate that the water supply made available at Whitney is probably the most cost-effective and least environmentally impactful way to generate additional water supply. So that's why we're here supporting it.
So we're going to leave this slide up because why we're here today is to get your comments. And so we welcome any of your comments, and we have several ways for you to leave your feedback. So one way is there's comment forms kind of around the room. I spoke of this at the very beginning, so they're kind of on the different tables. They do have our address on the back, so if you didn't want to submit them today, you're more than welcome to take them home.
Good
And
email.
then we're also going to record. Yeah. I'll answer that in just a second. Let me just get this, and then I'll say how the comments are being used, and that will actually answer that question. So another way today, if you want to record a verbal comment over at where those folks are standing over there, the four folks, they record the comment, and then they will be transcribed as part of the record, and we will read them, and I'll get to what we do with them in a minute. Or you can submit comments via our email. So this is for the study email. And then, or the good old postal service. And that is our address. That address is also on the back of the comment forms. And our comment period ends August 20th. And so your comments help us with our study moving forward. So what we do is we take all your comments and we read them. We take what you guys say to heart and we talk about them, and then ultimately what will be in the final report is responses to those comments, and then it'll be part of an appendix that is in the report. So you can, and I should note, this gentleman brought up earlier, so just so you all know, a public comment is part of the public record. So it's a little disclaimer. So you don't need to put your name on it if you don't want to. But if you do, we scan like all the comment cards or comment forms, I should say, and it may be part of the record that
So
will
tell
be part of the
them
record.
what
It
you
doesn't mean
really
that we
think.
report, but it could be someone in our, what we call administrative record. And so hopefully that kind of answered your question. But there's multiple, also feel free to, there's a few posters where we'll have staff if you want to talk more about this and talk about, or have questions. And there's sign-in sheets as well. And do you have a question?
Yeah, is there going to be a Q&A tonight?
No.
So can I make a statement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay, so if you wanted to do a verbal comment that you
I'm
wanted
going to make a
for...
verbal statement with this.
Okay, well, we were doing all verbal comments recorded over...
That's fine. I'm happy to have it recorded.
Okay, well, he's recording them over there. We're not doing like a hearing style.
I just have comments to make. Can I make one? Yes.
You can, yeah.
No, it's true.
No, I hear that. Okay, that's fine. So let's get it done so we can record it. So assuming that you want us to...
I would love for it to be recorded.
Let him talk.
No, I get it. We need to...
That's why we're here.
That's why we're staying here.
We all came here because the public's going to get Q&A.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for putting this together tonight. This is a lot of facts and figures, but I don't think it really gets down to the core of what we're here for. I'm speaking to you tonight as a concerned resident and an advocate for our community on our environment and the long-term sustaining of Lake Whitney. We are here to discuss a proposal that would lower Lake Whitney's conservative pool to 512 feet. A change that on paper sounds small, but in practice represents a profound shift in consequence that will affect every one of us for decades. Why this is being proposed? At the center of this discussion is a massive piece of infrastructure project called DFW-10, a private data center backed by institutional investors to function the facility that requires 5 million gallons of water every single day for the next 30 years.
Hello.
That totals over 168,000 acre feet of water, enough to drop our lake significantly and permanently alter its character. In order to meet the water demands, planners are proposing to drop the minimum pool level to 512. Why? Because there's a need, mathematically, assurance that Lake Whitney can be continued supplying the volume of water even in times of drought. Here's a simple math equation. Available water is equal or greater than the daily use, 365 days a year, on a 30-year basis, which insanely adds up to 512. By lowering the lake, they create the appearance of a secure water supply for the data center investors. But here's the catch. The security for them means insecurity for all of us. Let's talk about what the 512-foot level really means. Boat ramps, unusable. Marinas will dry up. Fish habitats will destroy. Tourism will vanish. Property values will plummet. And perhaps, most importantly, the ecological balance of the entire Brazos River basin will be destroyed. The U.S. Corps of Engineers, until recently, had long documented dangers of lowering conservation pools. Their own studies, as well as independent reviews, show that the reduced pool levels increase drought vulnerabilities, downgrade water quality, harm fish and wildlife, expose communities downstream to flooding, and devastate local economies that depend on recreation and tourism. So why the sudden change? That's the question we all deserve to know. Because what's happening here is that the public lake is being turned into a private utility.
Yes.
is water routed not for municipal drinking supplies, not to the farmers, not to recreations, but to an industrial venture that benefits a small group of investors and technology clients. And why they walk away with guaranteed returns, we are left holding the bag. Losing recreation economy, our environmental sustainability, and our voice in how we share resources that are managed. This isn't about Lake Whitney. This is about whether or not natural resources can be sold off without our consent.
Yes.
Whether our local economy should be sacrificed so that a data center hundreds of miles away can stay online during a heat wave. We deserve better. And we demand answers. So tonight I call on the Corps, the Brazos River Authority, and every stakeholder involved to provide transparency on the proposal, share the independent hydraulical and environmental reviews, and commit to the community engagement before making irreversible decisions. Lake Whitney is not a bargaining chip. It's our home, our economy, and our shared future. Let's protect it together.
Thank you for your comments. Again, I know I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I'm going to get up here and talk to y'all. Some of you may know me because I'm a 50-year resident of Whitney. I work with the Brazos River Authority. My dad's a fishing guide on the lake, was for 20 years. He was the lake manager for the Corps of Engineers, and I spent a lot of time on the lake. And we're pleased that you're here. The purpose of this meeting tonight is for people to come write comments. And we've got comment cards that we want to hear your comments. But I will tell you, as a Whitney resident and as someone who's been doing this job for 30 years, what we're talking about doing here is not going to affect the economy of the lake. It's not.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. We can't guarantee
I can't make you believe what we're telling you, but
he said it. I didn't. He basically stated that
it would not.
The reason they want a lower level is for effect downstream. They have Limestone Lake. If they're not backing it up, they need to back it up. There's Lake Waco. There's Lake Waco they can go get in, even though it's on the Bosque. It's a different river. Now, if they want to raise the lake 6 feet and take 3 from Possum Kingdom and 3 from Granbury, which they can do, there's studies out there where they looked at that, then they put it in this lake, then they can have all that water that they want. No problem.
Right.
No problem.
So, again, I can't make you first believe what we said, but I think we do have customers downstream. But the thing that I wanted everybody to take away from here tonight, and I can't make you believe it, is that going forward with this plan, lake levels in Lake Whitney are going to be better than they were from 1973 through 2015.
Which is a $4 billion investment by KKR in Blackstone, which
that's because
we biggest private equity firms in the world.
They're not getting water from us.
But this is what it's about.
No, it's not.
They need 5 billion gallons a day.
It has nothing to do with it. One other thing I want to address. One thing I want to address is the data center. We've heard a lot of rumors about that. There's a data center going on in Laguna Park. I drive by every day going to Waco. And the first time I saw it was in October last year, just like it did when I drove by and saw the land that they off. There is zero connection with that data center in this project, or even a lot of water trying to
Well, can I ask you this? So, KKR, they represent about $1 trillion in assets under management. Do you know who KKR's partner and chairman is that is leading this investment? That focuses on the waterway rights and figuring out what that is ex-4-star General Petraeus, who do you not think has some polls within the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers now that he's in the private sector?
Do you know who our general manager used to be? It was a retired police sergeant in the airport.
Yeah, but but you
Used
didn't have
to
a
be.
$4 billion, 30-year investment on this one.
I'm not going to argue. I'm going to turn the microphone back over to the presentation.
Is this already a done deal? That's what it's already done.
None of that.
Is Lake Texoma, Lake Eagle Mountain, that's completely died, this similar thing? And where the Corps of Engineers have said for years that it's a terrible idea to drop the wells.
So,
I just want to know why y'all don't want to use one of the other propositions. Why are you putting this forward over bracing the lake or over the now, which are two more very viable propositions? Why are you just looking at really non-common sense? That's the worst plan that there is.
In the last 30 years, we've had
Talk louder.
I don't see any consideration allowed for new reservoirs being built in this surface here.
we're working on one of those two downstream in Austin County called Allen Street. But
What does the flooding do downstream with dropping this lake? Because they're serious.
honestly, dropping this lake would help flooding because it catches more
That's
water.
not what the data says.
It is what the data said. And to the other point,
Right before Army engineers I went through 25 documents. That's actually the opposite of what it says. What you guys have said in every one of your studies, it will increase flooding downstream.
the more empty storage you have when it rains upstream, the less flooding there is downstream. And that's the reason we didn't go into the flood pool, because if we had this meeting downstream at the coast, we would have a room just like this, everybody telling us that's crazy because you're not protecting us from flood.
A slight chance of that happening, only a slight chance. And the protocols for letting out can be changed, that they can let out more water and manage it. That's all. I mean, it's only 3 foot of water or a foot and a half. You know, that way you have plenty for the two entities. That's one is you and the hydro.
Yes, sir.
I got one question. Does the community actually have a say?
No.
No, we don't.
You guys put a master secretary.
No, they wouldn't make their decision.
You're here tonight, right? There's comment cards. Each one of these comment cards.
Raise your hand if you oppose this.
We oppose it.
So, good evening, everybody. I'm Brandon Walkerson. I'm the National Environmental Policy Action with Forward District. This meeting tonight is required by law to take into consideration for the team to evaluate the final determination of the path forward. So, there's two ways that you really need to provide your involvement to us. One is being here tonight and showing that you have interest in the resources, daily lives here in the lake. The second way is making sure you fill out a comment form, mail in a comment form, email a comment form, or get your comment recorded
Will it
tonight.
make a difference?
By law, yes.
By law, how do we know it's going to be seen?
You just said this is a formality.
In the environmental assessment, we are required by law to respond to every single person's comments.
But you already told us we don't have to put our name on it, so how would we know?
There is no final decision until the commanding officer of the United States Army signs the final endorsement. Impacts or record of decision. Then we have a rescoping meeting that took into consideration, and today is an opportunity to get your comments on the draft. We still have a lot of work to do to make a final decision, but like I said, you have to put in official comments. And let me make one more point. The NEPA document that is being written and integrated into the report is your recourse. If we don't follow the plan that is codified in the document, that is your legal recourse to hold the team, government, sponsors accountable.
this historic.
Anything that we say, does it have any sway? Will it even make a difference? If they want
Every single
it.
day across the nation, this is the one law, National Environmental Policy Act, this is the one law that gives the public key in federal suspension.
Will we be able to read the final report?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing everybody, but there are core staff and ERA staff that are going to be more by the post
Will we be able to read the final report?
Yes, we are required to post the final on the website as well as notify you that it's there as well.
Will we be able to read all the comments?
Okay, I'm gonna go set the tripod up over by them.
The t-shirts and all that. We got talking and stuff. You had extra pamphlets.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so sorry, I walked into the dark area over here and kind of lost connection, but I think you kind of get a sense of the room. You know, the government, quasi-government, is saying one thing and people are not really buying it, but we'll see what ends up happening. So in the caption of this video is the 140-page reallocation study. You can download that. Most of these pictures from on these posters are in the study. So you can see it in person, zoom in on your screen to be able to see all the tiny little numbers. Sorry. So it's alternative 6 that they're talking about adopting for this. I got to set this down. Can't really hear anything in here. But everybody's talking. This is on my Facebook page, Amy Teal, T-E-A-L. You're the next one there? Yes. I shared it to next door too.
Yeah, I think you probably know one of mine.
Probably.
I'm
Nice to meet you, Pat.
This just pisses me off to no end. I built we inherited property down, we've been coming to the lake since the 60s.
Right.
We tore down the lake house that we inherited and built a beautiful place right on the cliff. We can walk down the lake. I'm not like
This is my guy.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. People are pretty upset.
Where do y'all live?
We're the last house in the city limits of Whitney, headed to Hillsboro on 22. So
really a long way away from the lake.
You live right outside. I'm in Amy Teal. This is
All right.
It has the in the caption. It has the link to the 140 reallocation. Teal, T-E-A-L. Amy Teal. I'm gonna block my stream, dude. Okay. So the presentation part is over. At this point, they are taking comments, and so you can either fill out a form that's over at that table, or you can go over to that table back there and record a verbal comment, and that will be transcribed and entered into the record.
What's the deadline for public comment?
Deadline is August 20th.
Yeah.
So let me put this down here. Oh, Rhonda, yes, I'm on City Council in Whitney, and if the link won't let you tap it, copy and paste it into Google, and it will bring it up. And yeah, this is the kind of thing that this is going to impact the entire Brazos River Basin, one way or another. So everybody upstream and everybody downstream probably needs to pay a little bit of attention to this. And whether you agree or disagree, get your comments in. This is the email. Let me zoom in on that. CESWF-Whitney_reallocation at usace.army.mil. Whitney Lake is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer lake. It was a bigger turnout than I expected. So as soon as I'm done, you guys can go back and watch the beginning and, you know, like 10 minutes from the end, I guess, to where everybody was really mad. Oh, I need to go find that guy and find out who that guy was, if he's still here. You remember who that was?
No. Take the camera and put him on camera.
Yeah. Sorry. Who was the guy that was reading?
Oh, he left.
He left? I didn't even get his name. He's gone. Okay, I failed. My journalistic integrity is just shot. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Go ahead and stop the stream. But that takes care of that. I'll talk to y'all later.